All right, I think, okay. So, hello everyone. Welcome to my first video interview for our Gipford moms. My name is Erin, and I apologize, but my second half, Tina, is not with us today because she, during the day, cares for 5 or 6 little tiny humans while their parents are at work. So this is a daytime thing, and I'm doing it solo without Tina. But I know we kind of have the same mind, and I know she trusts me to speak for her. So today, the good news, we have Brenda Baker from momsmixedfamilyblender.com. And I will post all of Brenda's information down below wherever we choose to post this so that you can quickly get in touch with her. But Brenda and I connected online. Brenda is a stepmom, and we're just gonna dig into Brenda's story today, and hopefully some of this will resonate with any of you out there co-parenting, step-parenting, because we all need support.
Yes.
So welcome, Brenda, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor because I just love what you guys are doing, and I wish my experience would have been like you guys. I'm just so thankful to know somebody who has had positive.
Oh yes, we that's what we want, hope and inspiration. So okay, we are gonna dive right in. And my first question for Brenda, I just kind of want you to tell us about yourself. Tell us your family dynamics, so we get a little background here.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to go all the way back and it won't be long. It's just, you kind of need to understand where I came from so that you understand kind of what happened.
Yep.
When I was in first grade, the teachers told my parents that I was really struggling in school. And so I was tested and they decided that I was dyslexic. In my day, which I'm really not that old, but things have changed so much in schools that in my day, when a child didn't learn exactly like everyone else or had a major difference in learning style, the schools kind of didn't have a whole lot of resources. And so what would happen is that they put me in with the mentally handicapped kids. Now, it was good in the fact that I would never, ever have known how to love those people. So it was really good for me because I'm an only child. So I didn't really have a whole lot of experience. I lived kind of in the adult world because my parents had adult friends who didn't have a lot of kids. So fast forward my situation many years, basically my peers told me all the time that I was a retard. That I was in the retard room, and that's their words, not mine, because I literally never felt that way about these kids. I learned a love for them that I would not have had otherwise. So it was a huge blessing, but unfortunately I internalized a lot of those words, and I'm a words person. So, so fast forward when I was 16, I met the wrong guy. Eventually, a couple years later, I married the wrong guy and had a child with the wrong guy. And the wrong guy was extremely abusive to me, mostly words, but there were other abuse that I sustained from him. And so that really is kind of the whole of my story in short as to why I why I kind of got to a place where I allowed a man in my life that was not healthy for me, wasn't a good example, wasn't good in any way. It wasn't until I got pregnant with my son that I started realizing my son was going to be abused.
Yep.
That was he was an abusive personality. And I started realizing, no, we're not doing this. And so basically by the time I was 21, I was divorced with a small child. My child was 1. And it was a hard time in my life because I didn't know God and I didn't want to submit anything to God. And so I was alone. I have my parents, but my parents were so excited that I was done with that guy, because it had been 3 years of absolute terror, I'm sure, for them, especially
Right.
my mom, because of the situations that I put myself in. And so honestly, I didn't have a lot of support from them, because they're like, yes,
Yeah.
finally you're done with this guy. And when we got divorced, my child, basically the judge asked me, what do you want to happen? Because my ex-husband didn't bother to show up to our divorce. He just didn't
Oh,
come.
wow.
It wasn't interesting or something. And so basically I got to choose what happened to the child, and he got supervised visits, but honestly, he was never interested in the child.
Right.
Quite a while, well, not quite a while, about a year and a few months later, I met my now husband. So that was almost 24 years ago. And honestly, he always has taken my son in as his own. He did end up adopting him when my son was 5. And so my son really has only known him as dad. He really didn't know his biological dad much.
Yep.
He didn't want children. He wanted me to get an abortion, to be honest. You.
Didn't want the responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So did I answer your question? I hope I did.
Oh, yes, definitely. And it's just that story, hearing all of that just reminds me that, we are all on our own path, and we all have to experience certain things to make room for other things. Although a divorce and having a ex-husband or a dad that doesn't want the responsibility, well, because I'm so good at finding silver linings, that's my favorite thing. That whole silver lining is, well, at least he admitted that. At least, you knew right up front, and the choice then was yours. You didn't have to battle him or whatever. He's like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so interesting.
It's been so hard on my son.
Yeah.
Because he's felt a huge sense of abandonment, even though the person that he knows as his dad, my husband, has never treated him like a stepchild.
Right.
He still feels that huge loss in why. Why didn't my biological dad love me? Why didn't he want me? And it's been hard for him. He's 26 now. He's got 3 children and a beautiful wife of his own. And he hasn't made the same decisions as his biological father. He's very much patterned his dad, the one who raised him.
Yeah, that's cool. And so when you met your now husband, he had children?
Yes, he had been married and divorced, and he had 2 children, 2 boys, and that's our 2 oldest boys are his.
Okay.
And then the 3 other boys are ours.
Awesome. Okay, so do a rundown, oldest to youngest, and their ages.
Okay. Our oldest is 29, then 20, almost 28, 26, 21, and 18.
Okay.
And the 2 youngest are the ones that we had together. So we have the his, mine, and ours.
Yes.
But really, it's just his and ours.
Right. It's us. This is us.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
So.
Okay, so 24 years of experience at this.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, and so really, I mean, my husband and I both kind of came to this mission where we were like, we want to help people stay together, because honestly, if you just deal with yourself and with your ugly parts, we all have them. So,
and I am so glad you mentioned that, because I do truly believe, like, peaceful co-parenting or good co-parenting in general, it's us. I mean, we so often point the finger of she did this and you did this, and it's like, no, we got to fix what's in here first, and that resonates out to all of our other relationships. So
I agree.
Totally.
And in this process, my husband he helped me learn about God.
Yep.
I knew about God because my parents went to church and whatnot, but it was a different.
Yes.
It was different.
I don't know how to describe it either, but I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are going to get into the ex-wife. So I know, I want you to describe as of, well, maybe start at the beginning. What has the journey and the relationship been with your husband's ex-wife?
Well, she was the one who chose to have several affairs. She was very much like my husband's father in the fact that she was extremely verbally abusive to him. So he went from his father to a wife who was abusing him in exactly the same ways.
Mm.
And my husband at the time was just not, he wasn't the man he is today, which who is, you know,
Right.
When we're young, we're just so different. That was really the case for me as well. Because when I first met my ex-husband, I was the type of person that would tell you what's what. I didn't take crap from people. I definitely would stick up for myself. And for some reason, I went crazy for a time. And
Funny how that works, isn't it?
yeah. So they had one child, and then she decided that she was tired of him. And so she moved back to her home state, which was several thousand miles away from where we live now.
Okay.
And took the child with her. And my husband was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So he moved as well. And through a turn of events, ended up coming back on the bus to where we live now, kind of, and with the child. And they ended up having a second child, which there was always a question whether or not that child was my husband's.
Mm-hmm.
And so from a very young age, his ex-wife told the child, that's not your dad.
Oh.
You have another dad. And it was
without any real proof, though.
Exactly.
No test or anything. Okay.
No test, no proof. There were, yeah. And so, honestly, part of the reason, kind of like her last affair, was when my husband was in boot camp. He went, he signed up for the Montana National Guard, and he went to, boot camp and all of that. And he was there. His parents called him, which you don't get phone calls when you're in boot camp. You just don't. And told him that they had found out that she had moved in with another man. And so basically when he got back from boot camp and AIT, he and she tried to work things out, but, how do I say it nicely? A person who has chosen to have affairs.
You can just say it.
That chooses not to be repentant is just it's not gonna work.
Right.
They tried.
Yep.
And so they divorced when the youngest of their two children was 2, I think.
Oh, that's a tough age too.
2, 3, somewhere in there. Well, no, he wouldn't have been 3. So he had to have been 1.5 or 2.
Wow.
Because I met my husband when his oldest was 4 and his youngest was 3.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's been a ride. It's really been a ride. When I showed up into the picture, I was as broken as my husband, honestly, in a personality way, in my heart, I was broken. I didn't know. And I was angry. And so my husband really helped me to learn how to forgive, how to move forward, those sorts of things. And it was a process. In that process, I did learn about God and learn that I wanted to serve God.
Right.
And so I became a Christian. And, honestly, through that process, again, all of our brokenness became this beautiful thing because I wouldn't have known God otherwise.
Right.
If I hadn't made the choices that I made, I would not have been in a place where I would listen because I like I said, I'm an only child. And so I'm headstrong. My personality is naturally that way, but then you add being an only child to that. I want what I want it now. And I still struggle with that, to be honest with you. I definitely have to keep that under control at all times because it can go and I don't even realize it. So
yes. Do you think that, because I know just from our prior conversation, you had basically described, at least in the beginning, that your relationship with his ex-wife was high conflict or, well, difficult. And maybe just share with us a few scenarios or a few different times that you had high conflict with her.
Okay. Well, at first, she was not interested in the kids, especially the oldest, because the oldest really reminded her of my husband. And so she didn't really want as much to do with him. And so when I first came into the picture, honestly, there was not much contact because my husband had the oldest for, I don't remember now, several months without him ever even seeing mom. So that's kind of when I came into the picture. And then all of a sudden, I think she kind of found out about me. I don't know. I don't really remember. But what I do remember is that all of a sudden I have this angry beast on my hands. There were several times that we really tried to at least kind of like each other, and it always went badly. For instance, when my husband and I were just dating, I would go with him or I would go to get the children and for his visitation. And the youngest of the two, obviously, like I said before, had been told that my husband was not his dad. And so that child would kick and scream and cry. And it got so hard on my husband that I finally was like, honey, you're supposed to be at work. So why don't I just pick him up? Because my job was, I was a nurse's aide in a nursing home. And so I worked the 6 to 2:30 shift. And so I could go and pick them up at 4 and we're fine. You know, my husband didn't have to leave work. It worked better. Yeah. And I was happy to do that for my husband because the conflict was just so hard for him because he's like, why doesn't my son want anything to do with it? And so that's one example. Well, let me finish that. Yeah. So early on, she would be angry that I was even there. It wasn't my right to be there. And and we would talk about, and he would talk with her about how I had his permission. He was going with my blessing and just let it go, basically. My husband is more the peacemaker type. And so, he would definitely just say, hey, don't worry about it. She knows that I want her to pick them up. It's good. Yep. And she would just nitpick the whole time I was there. Sometimes it was okay. And she was semi-friendly. And most of the time it was, he doesn't want to go with you. He doesn't like you. I mean, she would say every mean thing possible. Right. And the child really took on that behavior. So early on, I started realizing if I'm going to be with this man, I got to learn how to love these kids. And I'm not a kid person at all. Okay. I am not. So taking on somebody else's children. Oh, I totally hear you. And I went through a time where it was like, I would ask my husband constantly, how do you do this? Because he never was like that with my child. Yeah. Never. He just took him on. He's like, all right, kid, let's go, blah, blah, blah. And he was awesome. And he was such an amazing example to me. Right. Basically, by his example, I learned how to love his children. Oh, perfect. As my own, which is so surprising. Right. Again, funny how that works, isn't it? Yep. Such a blessing, though. I learned so much. And learning how to love people that I don't like has been a process, but it's also been a great testimony, I think, to just what a leader my husband is. Right. Of me. He manages all of this. No, I mean, I follow him by choice and because he's a good man. So it's been awesome. Oh, good. Awesome.
Okay, so my next question that I had written down, I don't know if I guess it is a question, but since Tina's not here, I wanted to do something from her perspective, sort of. And one thing that she always talks about is the invisible stepmom line. And, when we're talking with someone who's having difficulties, it's like the first thing she brings up, like, well, did you cross that line? And I, to a certain point, since in case I didn't mention it, I'm the bio mom, Tina's the stepmom. And I guess in my mind, it's like, oh, is there a line? Like, I don't know about that line. And maybe it's because Tina's just never crossed it. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Like, do you have that line? Are you conscious of it? Does it not exist? What?
Well, since I am the stepmom, I wish I would have known you guys. Because yes, I crossed that line many times. And honestly, I did not know. I didn't have the intention of crossing the bio mom.
Right.
But she was non-interested. She was more interested in playing and having fun, doing fun things with the kids, but never the discipline, never the teaching, never the training, never anything that was hard. She left to me.
Yep.
And I was the crappy person because I'm the evil step monster, which is what she called me to the kids.
Oh. See, now, okay, I can relate to that in a certain way. But I'll tell you what the difference is with Tina and I, because I would totally agree, and I have felt guilty about it numerous times. I always say, though, Tina was meant to be part of our family because she does that hard stuff. And I, like, when my kids were little, she was the one that always scheduled the doctor's appointments. She took them to the dentist, partly because she had more flexibility. She was daycare and worked at home and could adjust her schedule more easily than I could. But even to this day, like, she is the first one to initiate the hard conversations with my kids that I tend to just I subconsciously just put them off because it's hard. And I know that Tina was meant to be in their lives because of those big reasons. And I'm sure at certain times she's felt the same way about me, like, I shouldn't be the one doing this. But the difference, I feel like, is that I recognize that really early on, and I always tell her how much I appreciate it, and how, just what I just told you, like, I know that God gave us you because you're totally picking up all my slack.
Yeah. And like you said, God knew that,
right.
And I love your vulnerability in sharing that because, honestly, God knew the choices that my husband's ex and my husband were going to make.
Yep.
He knew. So he did pick me.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, you do realize you were put there for that exact reason, to pick up that slack. Whether or not you get appreciated for it is another story. But, like, just hold that and know that that is why that's your role that you're meant for, even if it sucks sometimes.
Yeah. And I was totally willing because about a year after my husband and I got married, I was very convicted after 2 pretty traumatic miscarriages. I was very convicted that I needed to stay home with our kids because in my situation, her daycare would call me at work to come and get the kids because she was a single mom.
Yep.
And
I can see how that wouldn't make sense to you, but
I wasn't even married to him. Well, no, when that started happening, I wasn't even married to my husband yet. But yet she'd sit there and yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was hard because everything I did, she would only point out the things that were wrong that I did badly, or like she'd nitpick me because I'm not a kid person. I don't do parties.
Yep, I don't either.
I suck at them so bad. I'd love to be wonderful. Like our middle son's wife is amazing at parties. Like that girl can plan parties. She's the Pinterest non-fail.
Yeah, that's Tina too. I mean, yeah, she plans everything.
Yeah.
And I am glad to let her do it.
Yeah. And there was really only two parties that we did together, and they were a nightmare. Yeah, because again, she was the type of person, is the type of person that will nitpick what you do wrong and
Right.
never builds you up for the things that you did right. So it doesn't matter if you're a bio mom or you're a stepmom, you need to appreciate to the kids
Yep.
what their mom or mom is doing that you appreciate, because that's so huge. You're teaching them life lessons.
Yep. Agreed. Awesome. Okay, so being that things haven't and still aren't always great with ex-wife, have you and your husband had to set any boundaries, had to make any rules, just to kind of keep your sanity? And if you have, what are they?
Rules as far as in our marriage with the kids? What do you mean?
I'm thinking more like between the two of you. Like, does one of you communicate with her solely, or I'm just trying to think of some of the common ones I've heard. I guess I'm at a loss now. Maybe you don't have any boundaries. I don't know.
We do. We do. Well, first I want to tell you that a boundary I feel like we should have set with the my stepchildren, which I literally have never felt they were. I always have felt like they were extension of me, even though I knew they came from someone else. I really have never looked at them that way, because that's exactly what my husband did. But a boundary that I believe that we absolutely should have set when our kids, those two kids, were young, is mom's house stays at mom's and dad's house stays at dad's, and you don't nitpick what is happening at either. We thought in our, we didn't know anybody who was divorced, and we didn't know anybody who had any like good advice for us, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. We didn't know that in the future what that would do is make them still, and their mom taught them through her actions to be a nitpicker. And so in hindsight, and I tell people this all the time, do not allow the kids to come over and about what happens at the other parent's house, because it's destructive. It teaches the kids that they can get away with stuff, because if they can make problems between them, they're going to get what they want either at mom's or dad's. Yeah, that's the case. Yeah. So, so that's a boundary I feel like we should have set, and one that we had that was extremely early on was we never argued about a discipline or a disagreement about the kids in front of them. Never. That was just something that we didn't do, because again, that was something that we realized really quickly, was that when the kids would figure out that they could get us disagreeing, they would capitalize on that.
A weak spot, isn't that? It's like, and even thinking back in my own childhood, I can relate to that. I mean, my parents weren't divorced when I was young, but yeah, I totally can relate to that. Even now, find the weak spot to get what I want. Yep. And it's like they don't necessarily even do it consciously, but yeah.
Kind of the personality of kid that's more the sneaky one, though. Usually it's the second child, and in our family, absolutely the second child. They do more understand what they're doing. Yeah. But
interesting.
I agree with you, though.
And did you ever feel like she being your husband's ex-wife, trying to pit the two of you, you and your husband, against each other?
Yeah. And that's one of the many reasons that we only did two birthday parties together.
Yep.
She honestly, we allowed it to happen, but she orchestrated one of the largest fights we've ever had
Oh, yeah.
And we allowed it. So it was our fault. I'm not pressing blame on her. I'm just saying that that's the kind of person that she is. So,
Okay. Well,
yep.
and I feel like I need to say too, like about the whole joint birthday party thing or joint family get-togethers. I know that it's kind of like that thing that everybody wants and tries to do and thinks that if they can do that, it's the end all be all and we finally made it if we can all be in the same room and get along. But at the same time, I feel like you have to, obviously, if it's unhealthy, then it's better not to do that. You know, don't hold yourself to that standard and think if you can't do that, that you're failing for some odd reason. I mean, our like Tina and Sean and I have always, for the most part, gotten along, and we just had our first blended birthday party a year ago, and we're like, oh, yeah, I guess we just never thought about it. Like we've just always done them separate, no big deal, it works. And yeah, so hopefully, I just hope that people don't think that if they can't do that, they're terrible.
Well,
Because
and if you don't mind, I'd love to interject a little bit right there is honestly, if you do come to a place where you can get along and you are just thriving with your co-parenting, that is wonderful.
mm-hmm.
Your family members may or may not be willing, able, or otherwise to deal with said person because they hurt you so bad.
Exactly. I could see that happening too.
If I would have ever tried that with my parents, with my ex-husband, no,
Nope.
that would not have happened. And even his parents, they were like, I'd love to stab you. You know, not really. But what I'm saying is we can't expect our family members to be where we're at. We
Right.
really need to be thoughtful. Even if our co-parenting is going wonderful, it's okay. We don't have to be.
Right.
Some parties, yes, and other parties, no.
Yep.
Well, what? Just do what you can, do what works for you, but don't expect your family members to fully support everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And
Good
it's
point.
not going to go well if family members don't.
Right.
They're going to start problems.
Yep.
I'm not even trying to. They're going to,
It's going to stress everybody out. And then you'll be like, why the heck did we do this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like my new favorite saying is just, you do you, I'll do me. Let's just all do ourselves and be happy.
Yeah. And part of the reason I'm saying that about birthday parties is our oldest son tried that garbage with us, with his mom. And yeah, it's not gone over well. And it's honestly caused a pretty big wedge between us and he and his wife. Because honestly, it was so painful to even think that we would be expected to be at our grandson's birthday party with this woman who did nothing but attack us, nothing but try to be horrible at all times, and continues.
Yeah.
Like anything she can find dirt on us, she tries. Yeah.
So I like that you have just established that as a boundary. Like, no, we're not going to go there because it never ends well.
It hasn't been popular.
Yeah.
It hasn't been popular with our oldest son. Honestly, we have had a huge wedge since then.
Well,
and it's been over a year. And it's been hard.
Yeah. It will work itself out the way it's meant to be.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess my stand on it is they're going to have to catch up and realize this is my boundary. It doesn't matter if you agree, like it, want it, think it's right, think it's Christian. Doesn't matter. You didn't go through what I went through. And you don't have any idea the amount of crazy, terrible things that have happened, and I'm just not willing.
Yep.
So if you want to have a birthday party, go have a birthday party, but don't invite me.
Yeah.
You know? So it's been hard.
Yes. Okay. What's next? Okay. Have you ever, as a stepmom or throughout your stepmom journey, have you ever gotten to the point where you're just like, screw this, I'm done? And how did you work through it? Because obviously you're still doing it.
Yeah. So my husband's second son chose to move in with mom full time when he was 14, when my husband was at home on leave from Iraq. Up till that point, he had been horrible, is the nicest way to put it. Not only to me, but to the middle son. So that was a point where I was like, what the heck? Really? Are you kidding me? After all the sacrifices that we, especially my husband, has made, because let me just say that child support in Montana is, child support is hard to pay anyways.
Yep.
But when the children are with the person who's paying child support constantly,
Right.
It's hard. It's more like glorified alimony. And the state of Montana, as far as I know, doesn't have alimony, but that's pretty much what we did. And so it was very difficult to watch my husband work 3 jobs in order to keep me home to teach and train our kids and raise them. And then have this kid just totally be horrible. So the relationship with that child has been severed and still is. And that was 13 years ago.
Okay.
And so that was a point where I was like, oh my word, what the heck? Like it would have been better if my husband never had met me, because I'm the problem here. Because everything that happened and all of his anger was pointed and directed at me, because mom's always was.
Yeah.
So I don't believe when he was younger that it was as much him, but now he chooses.
Yep.
So that was a point. And then honestly, when the oldest moved out of our house, that was another point where I was like, I give up. I don't even know. Because that child, honestly, as far as a stepmom perspective goes, I took both those boys in as my own. And if I was hard on anyone, it was my own children. So the level of disrespect that our oldest has chosen, for the most part, to do and say things about us has been just very damaging, which is why I put a very, very hard line down when he chose to invite his mom to the birthday party and whatever. So
Right.
It's been 11 years with him that has been up and down, but mostly down. And so it's, there's been other times, but yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't imagine the struggles of being a stepmom, which is why the few times that I've dated somebody with kids, that's usually the first thing that comes up in my mind, even though they've been great people. I'm like, I really don't know if I can handle these kids.
Yeah.
So I hear you. And to be going through all that and still there, it must, to me, I feel like that's a testament of what a great person your husband is. He's got to be worth it.
He is. Oh my word. And, honestly, even though I have some anger toward the 2 older boys, I still love them.
Right. Yeah. And I would never have questioned that this whole entire time, obviously. Yeah. And sometimes it takes children, even though they're growing, but it sometimes takes a certain experience in their life to be able to reflect back and see, oh, all those times I thought she was doing this because of this. Ooh, no, she knew what she was talking about,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll welcome them back in.
Yep.
When it's time and when there's repentance, true
Yes.
repentance and true change.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. And the oldest knows what those things need to be done. And I'm at peace with it, honestly. I don't love it, and I don't love not being able to see my grandson, but it is what it is.
Yep. It's all part of the path.
It is.
Okay. I feel like we've already kind of covered number 6, so we are going to go on to our final topic, which I feel can't come at a better time because I feel like we're coming back up to fun and positive here. You have written a book, Helping Others Helps Me. And again, I will put links and everything so you can find out more about the book. But I want to hear firsthand the journey, what inspired you to write it, and tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Okay, well, this is what it looks like.
Oh, awesome.
Basically, the reason that I wrote it was because I found in so many times of my life alone. I felt alone because for many years we went to a church that there was a lot of angst, and our oldest son really orchestrated some of that, but some of it was just that we, any mistakes that we made were talked about to others, not to us. So I came through a really difficult time, especially my husband's first deployment. Lost a child, had no support pretty much. I mean, I had our best friends who live about not quite 700 miles away.
Oh my gosh.
Who were amazing and supported us every step of the way. And then we did have one couple here where we live, but then there was a couple other people that were key, but pretty much I felt kind of alone. And so I started realizing that what helped me the most was to help others and love on others, regardless of what was going on in my life. And so basically my whole point in writing this was to say, hey, doesn't matter if you're disabled, doesn't matter if maybe you feel like you're not smart. It doesn't matter if
the circumstance isn't the thing. Yeah.
Yes. It's more about giving love to others because we all get back what we put out there.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the inspiration of the book. And just at the end of each chapter, there is a practical exercise type thing.
I love those.
Yeah. To try to go deeper and say, okay, but do this now, you know?
Oh, good.
And my whole point was just to say, it doesn't matter. And honestly, with the epidemic of suicide, I really believe that it's because people have lost hope.
Stems from loneliness. Yep.
Yes.
Agreed.
And if we would just watch, if we would just see what those around us are doing and how they're feeling, we can see it if we look.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's so weird because I've been in the self-help / spiritual journey over the last year, and that is one of the big, huge, major points is the epidemic of loneliness and how so much of what's going on in society stems from that. And we just kind of, even though we feel like with technology we're somehow more connected, and it's like no, probably not.
Well, and probably, this is my own personal opinion, but I love social media, but it's a selfish thing. We're able to, when we have time or when we have 5 minutes at the grocery store, just pick that cute little phone up and we can just scroll through. We're not talking to the people around us.
Right.
Who probably need us.
Yes. And
who we could impact in just smiling at them or loving on them or saying, hey, I love what you're wearing today. Or Yep.
All right. I guess that is all I have for us today, but it was definitely an interesting and I feel like a connective sort of conversation. And I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to everything that we spoke about today. So I'm going to, put links so that everybody can get in touch with you if they want to connect in any way, shape, or form. And I guess I'm going to stop recording now, but we will chit-chat a little bit before we hang up.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so thankful for this opportunity and getting to know you. And I'd love to get to know Tina as well, because that just is so encouraging.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.